For me, I didn't really realize that was sexual abuse, what I was doing to my children, because it was going on in the community, the little community of Longbody. Um, I looked at it, it was like a game, because everybody else was doing it in the community.
The eastern shores of Lake Winnipeg in central Manitoba. Beautiful, peaceful, an ideal place to call home. But in this community, home has been a nightmare, especially for children. A place where secrets and silence imprisoned young and old alike. Hollow Water is an Ojibwe reserve, 200 kilometers north of Winnipeg. 450 people live here. 2/3 of them are the victims of sexual abuse. The offenders are grandparents, mothers, fathers, aunts, uncles, cousins. Few in the community have escaped the pain of this betrayal, and for decades they've kept it buried.
We couldn't just work with the victim, we also had to work with the offender, because we felt that the offender was the core of the problem. And to deal with victims alone, as is done in society, and not dealing with the offender, you're only dealing with half the problem. So it really helped us see the total picture. And not only individuals, but we also had to work with the families of both.
Richard and Deborah Kennedy were accused of sexually abusing 2 of their 5 children. By law, they were the responsibility of the Manitoba justice system. But that approach hadn't stopped abuse in the past, nor had it rehabilitated anyone. If Hollow Water couldn't find a way to make the couple admit their guilt, they would be returned to the courts. It was a bold step and not without risk, but the Crown Attorney's office agreed. Richard and Deb were given a 2-year probation.
I fell into that the denial system. I told people that the charges weren't true. I even lied to myself, saying that they weren't true.
I understood why my children were taken with my charges, but it was very hard to believe my husband's charges.
I tried to find a way to come out of that and tell the truth. And the more I thought about it, the more lies I picked up.
All of you know the fear of talking, coming into the group. And
There were more than the Kennedys needing help, but the community lacked counselors. Workshops and training programs were held, and the women of Hollow Water were the first to sign up.
We want to help them. We don't believe in jail because they don't get no help in jail. The way we see jail system is, sure, they'll go to jail. Sure, people see us as punishment, but we don't see it that way. That's not punishment, because they go in there and nothing happens in there, and they just get angry, and they come back to the community and do the same thing over again. So that cycle just continues. And what we're trying to do is to stop that cycle, to start helping these people that we believe in healing. I believe in healing. I believe they can heal.
What really changed my denial was they had this men's group in Hollow Water. They've already started, and they sat me in there. And I've sat with some offenders, and that's the day I felt I wasn't alone.
It was a pain passed on from generation to generation, a legacy of abuse Richard and Deb knew only too well.
We still have to. This is something like our family tree, and alcohol, all kinds of abuse is involved. And all these green lines are, that's the families that were sexually abused within the families. Richard Sr. was sexually abused,
Verbal abuse,
verbal abused,
physically
abused,
and mentally.
and mentally abused. And
I think that was a suicidal what you put on here, eh?
we started off like family tree and then what kind of abuse we came from.
This
like
is the hardest thing to do. And with our kids, it won't be that much, because this is where it's going to stop. Eh? So it's going to be, it's not going to be that much colors there, not much of abuse going through there, and
But it's gonna stop this year with our children and with their children.
Richard and Deb's probation required them to attend individual counseling sessions, addiction treatment, and sharing circles. At the end of their 4th year of probation, their children were brought back and placed in foster homes within the community.
Hollow Water couldn't live with themselves and know that when we report cases that our children would be put through the legal system. That is, they have to testify against their offender in a court setting. They have to convince judges and defense lawyers and crown attorneys that what they're talking about is the truth. I can't do that. How can I expect my child to do that? And this is where we bring in our understanding of protecting children in our traditional way. These children are gifts from Creator. It's our job to protect them. So the adults that are harming these children, it's their responsibility to make sure that the children won't have to go through the formal court system.
On the other hand, with our concept of traditional healing based on spirituality,
Kathy Lewis, a vice chair of the Parole Board of Canada, worked closely with Aboriginal offenders. She was particularly interested in Hollow Water's alternative to incarceration.
because your approach is so much cost effective for the amount of money that gets spent on incarcerating offenders. And I'm not just talking here about Aboriginal offenders, I'm talking here of many offenders in the country. That money could be funneled to the kind of processes that you've developed.
It sure hasn't been an easy journey for these two girls. They really challenged us a lot. They insisted that they needed to work with their parents, and yet under child welfare, those kinds of things are just not done. I mean, especially in incest situations, once children are removed, it's almost a guarantee that they'll never get back together.
at times I feel the tears come down when we sit around, and it's painful to tell my kids that. And I know how they feel about me now today. It's nice to get the trust, especially from my two daughters, Mona and Vanessa. I can feel that trust from them to me. And I can also feel the trust within myself going through the ceiling.
I've seen a lot of changes in them. My mom hardly yells. She just sits there and doesn't do anything. And then when we get into an argument, she doesn't butt in. She just sit there and listen. And my dad, we could trust him. Like, I trust my dad being alone with him. I couldn't trust him. And then after a while, I started trusting him. We talk We sit down and we talk about what he done. And he keeps telling us over and over how sorry he is. And I come a long ways.
I dream of a time when our children's spirits are going to be really strong, much stronger than us, and they'll understand the laws of Creator. They'll understand the values. They'll live by the values of our people, and I think that's where our children are leading us to.
Richard and Deb had struggled to admit the truth and regain the trust of their children and their community. For others, that journey is just beginning. Today, more than 200 people are involved in Hollow Water's holistic circle healing approach, and the team has undertaken yet another challenge: healing the victims and offenders of family violence. They know their struggle is far from over, but at least the healing has begun.